Focus and division is doing. I send out messaging to try to get people region. Okay, so there's a region one. Usually,
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to our virtual learning advisory committee known as VLAC. And we are so happy to see you this morning. We are going to be looking at several documents, and we know that educational technology and virtual learning are very important in our Commonwealth as we provide enhanced learning experiences for our students and teachers. As a part of this meeting, we have documents in your packets that we're going to refer to. We're going to look at a website. We will look at the educational technology plan, a portion of that, as we provide educators and administrators and students with technology resources, applications, media, and adaptive software, and for them to be able to design, collaborate, and develop the technology skills and digital skills that they need to be successful in the world today. This committee is very important and it's legislated. So I really want to thank you for your commitment, your attendance, your participation, and taking time from your busy schedules to be here with us today. We're pleased to have superintendents, educational agencies, and designees from the regions across Virginia. And so I would like to give you an opportunity at this time to introduce yourselves. The microphones in this room work very well. Just speak up from all directions in the room. And we'll start here with Calypso.
I'm Calypso Gilstrap, the Associate Director of the Office of Educational Technology and Classroom Innovation.
All right. Trey Davis, Superintendent, Richmond County Public Schools. Don't go into the office early.
Hi, I'm Megan Gordon. I think I'm the representative for VSBA, and I'm the Valley Region Chair and the Chair of Page County Public Schools.
Hi, I'm AJ Phillips, Director of Information and Instructional Technology for Prince William County Schools.
Hi, I'm Karen Thompson, Instructional Data Coach from Charlotte County Public Schools. I'm in for Dr. Robbie Mason.
Hi, I'm Mick Foley. I'm the Digital Learning Coordinator at Department of Education, the Office of Educational Technology and Classroom Innovation.
Hi, I'm Elmer Seward. I'm Vice President of Education Services for WHRO.
I'm Beth Wygant from Hampton City Schools, Coordinator of Innovation and Digital Learning, here for Dr. Haynes.
Good morning, I'm Keisha Tennessee. I serve as the K-12 Computer Science Coordinator at the Virginia Department of Education.
Good morning, Ernie Longworth, Chief Technology Officer, Chesterfield County Public Schools.
Hi, John Mustachio. I'm the E-rate Coordinator and K-12 Specialist in the Office of Cybersecurity and Risk Management at the Department of Education. So it's nice to meet everybody.
I'm Lincoln Whitaker. I'm Director of Technology for Pulaski County Public Schools.
Good morning. I'm Amy Griffin. I'm from the Virginia Association of School Superintendents.
Hey everyone, Brian Mott, Executive Director, Virtual Virginia.
Morning, Brian Champney, Digital Learning Specialist in the Office of Educational Technology and Classroom Innovation.
Excellent. And we do have one guest, if you don't mind.
Sure. My name is Travis Blankenship. I work for McGuire Woods Consulting. We represent a client, Instructure. They host the learning management system, Canvas, that I'm sure most of you are familiar with.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. And again, thank you. As I said, this committee is legislated, and we want to be sure that all regions are represented. So we may be discussing with you how we can expand, maybe to include one additional person from your regions and your organizations. So that information will be provided to you. We will proceed through sorry. Just one moment, please. Technical errors. I think I need to turn this off. We will proceed through the agenda as listed on the screen. If you'll take a moment just to review that. We are happy to provide lunch to you today. And the facilities are just outside the door and to the left. We do have water available for you at the table. All right, Dr. Michelle Wallace is delayed, and we are going to bring her back as soon as she arrives and weave her into the meeting to provide some greetings and information to you. The purpose, of course, again, your attendance is very important, as we talked about online courses and in-service training, digital resources, blended learning, online opportunities in Virginia schools, as Virtual Virginia provides, low cost summer programs, courses during the year for students. And so we are following our technology plan in Virginia that includes digital learning, integration standards, computer science standards, in addition to other video initiatives that we have that relate to the work we do. As always, and I think that you enjoy it, we share highlights from across Virginia. We attended a webinar that was by CETA, which is organization, Technology Directors Association organization that provides a huge impact in assisting state leaders with educational technology. And so with this webinar that we attended on universal connectivity imperative, that's the name of the document that they actually produced. We were impressed with one of the students, and we have permission to show this excerpt.
Reading the question again, when I think of words like opportunities and leaders, I can only, it immediately relates back to how I go about my everyday high school life. Because I'm a senior in high school now, and almost everything we do is digital. Our homework is digital. Every kind of thing we do is digital. And I just think about how the world is really at your fingertips. There's no limit to what you can think you can do. And in a city, more like city example, because I live in the city, there's a million internships available. There's a million programs who want to help seniors have access to financial aid and want to help people with the next steps in their lives. And I think the internet is a very powerful tool, and it helps people get where they want to be in life when they don't necessarily have the resources face to face to realize that. Like, I come from a low income family, and I'm going to one of the best liberal arts schools in Maine, and I have a full ride, and it wouldn't have been possible if I had never connected to the internships I've had access to, or if I've never met the people that I've met. And it's all been through the internet. I applied through internships using things like Indeed. I look at my future careers, and I get to go on a computer and imagine my whole life, you know? Like, if I want to live in Spain when I'm older, I can open Zillow and look at apartments in Spain. Like, the world is really your oyster, and I feel like, not necessarily saying the people who don't have access to the internet lack imaginative thinking, but there's never a limit to what you can think, and there's never a limit to what you can do. Like, the best pop artists have inspiration that they've probably heard on the internet and things like that. So, like, outside of school, it helps you be a person. If you want to listen to a podcast about wellness, boom, there goes your audio and it's wellness. You just have so much more access to the world outside of what you're confined to as far as like your communities and your neighborhoods and your schools.
And this is what you do in Virginia that's so important as you provide access. John can speak to that, certainly through E-rate programs, through other funding that is provided throughout the Commonwealth. You do so well with providing connectivity and think of creative ways that help students to be successful, just like you saw Ms. Watson on the screen there. So at this time, I'd like to present Dr. Brian Mott, who will come up and share about the Virtual Virginia program.
Thanks, Reg. My goal today is I'll give you guys a high level overview of the last year. If you want to see more, I'm looking at our handout, page 32.
has a lot more detailed information about Virtual Virginia. If you want to follow along, and please do feel free to ask questions as I go through today's information. Okay, for many of you who are familiar, you know that Virtual Virginia is more than just K through 12 instruction. We actually have 4 programs. Our K through 12 instruction program, which is the backbone of Virtual Virginia. Most people think about that program when they think about Virtual Virginia, but we also have a very popular summer session available statewide, the statewide learning management system, which we're going to talk about a little bit, and our professional learning program is growing as well. As I mentioned, there's historical information in the handout, but over the last year, I'll start in our K through 12 instruction program. If you're not familiar with our model, it is a partnership. Virtual Virginia works with schools to support students and create that space for successful online learning. We do what we do best at Virtual Virginia. We provide access to the content, the course, the resources, and the teacher. School does what they do best, the student services. They know their students, right? They're intimately familiar with the students and their families. They provide school-based counseling and mentor services and any textbooks and materials needed for students to complete their courses. Working together in this model, we have created spaces for successful online learning for decades in Virginia. Here is the up-to-date 24-25 information in the top row. It's all in italics because this is as of April 1. This is about a month ago, and summer session is not included. So some of these numbers are going to change as we go through the summer session enrollment period. The first thing I'd like you to look at is column 4 is the percent full-time, and column 6 percent part-time. We're staying relatively constant. And as summer comes in, those are more part-time learners. You're going to see those numbers fall more in line. So again, Virtual Virginia is available for students to learn full-time if they want to take all their courses online, or part-time if they're just taking 1 or 2 courses as a complement to what's available locally to them. Why do students keep coming back? Why do families keep coming back and schools coming back to Virtual Virginia? Because they're satisfied. These are survey results from last year. 90% of students, when they completed their courses, felt comfortable in their courses, felt comfortable using the tools, moving through, using a learning management system. Parents and families, 90% plus, are satisfied with the courses available and are able to find the courses they want through Virtual Virginia. So students and families are pleased. Students are completing their courses and parents are happy because students are able to find courses that may not be available locally or may not fit into the student's schedule. School personnel, many of you here today, 95% of school personnel are satisfied with the alignment of Virtual Virginia curriculum, largely because our alignment comes from the SOLs. We are Virginia-based courses rooted in the standards of learning. So Virtual Virginia is a popular option for a number of reasons. Students are comfortable, courses are available, and schools are pleased with students performing in Virtual Virginia. I mentioned summer sessions a moment ago. We are in the middle of enrollment for summer session right now, and it's a growing program at Virtual Virginia. You know, if I could throw a graph of regular school year enrollment, it would peak during 21-22 and then sort of level off, right? If we go back to that data. Summer session continues to grow. In fact, we anticipate our summer learning will again eclipse last year's enrollment in summer session 24. That's because more students are looking for more options, right? And as our catalog in summer grows, so do the needs across the state. Let me share this briefly here. This year, we are offering 52 summer session courses, 39 for initial credit and 13 credit recovery courses. If I had to give you a top 5 of students looking to get ahead, there it is right there. Those are the top 5 courses of students who are looking to get ahead. The health and PEs, the economics, personal finance, that 3rd level world language, and an advanced course, mathematics. So most of our summer session students are either taking courses for credit to get ahead, or they're doing credit recovery opportunities as well. And one thing that's unique about our summer session, we do have 2 cohorts. So we have a session 1 for our school divisions that end a little bit earlier, and we have a second session for our school divisions who still end in early or mid-June, trying to align to those division calendars the best we can. Okay, and any questions about summer session or the K-12 program? Those are similar, but they're 2 separate programs. If not, we can dig into questions later. All right, our statewide learning management system. This is a program where Virtual Virginia, outside of our K-12 and summer session programs, We make the learning management system available to all public school divisions at no cost throughout the Commonwealth. And as you know, a learning management system is critical. Our student, Ms. Watson, mentioned earlier, the digital learning opportunities available. A learning management system is really where you organize that. And I see a lot of faces in the room of folks who use that learning management system every day here in Virginia, and they can attest to how powerful it is to organize the delivery of instruction in 2025. And what's really cool about the statewide learning management system is in Virginia, we have courses called our outreach courses where schools can download those for free. And I'll get into that in just a second. These are hubs. These are course resources free to any educator in the Commonwealth to take, modify, use, incorporate local resources, and develop their own content to use in their divisions and in their classrooms. And Virginia is unique. This is kind of the gold standard of statewide learning management systems in the country, and we're really proud of the results here in the Commonwealth. As I mentioned earlier, on the statewide learning management system, school divisions can do whatever they like. They can make their own courses, they can make their own resources, they can go out and bring external resources in, or they can download what's free through Virtual Virginia. And these are called our outreach resources. These are K-12 resources that any educator on the learning management system can download. Since 2019, we have a 154,000 plus. It's like a rolling ticker, if you can imagine that in your head. You keep updating and releasing new resources. Over 150,000 downloads since 2019, since we started the outreach program. That doesn't include a copy made locally. That's just a download from us. You can make copies within your division, as you guys know, and there could be thousands upon thousands more. That we can't really track those copies of those courses. What we do know is that over 150,000 resources have been downloaded from Virtual Virginia's outreach program. What is currently available? We have 154 K-12 and 11 adult ed resources as well. And what we're trying to do is give students the resources they need at the right time, give teachers things that are easy to use and aligned to standards, and that is our outreach program. Okay, so we're supporting students and teachers through this effort. All right, the final program I'll talk about for Virtual Virginia is professional learning. This is a growing area, as we know. Professional learning is shifting to more of a digital platform, right? Either as a complement to what's happening face-to-face or entirely online. And just year-to-date enrollments, over 10,000 professional learning enrollments through Virtual Virginia. What I really like here is this middle table, the top 5 offerings through our professional learning program. It's a healthy mix. We have our weekly statewide offerings. That's a Virtual Virginia offering, our annual conference, which is entirely online. Then we have 2 VDOE offerings in the top 5 as well. And then our number 5 is teaching people how to use the LMS, which is our 5th opportunity. So that the top 5 changes every year. It's not always Alabama and Clemson, right? It changes here at Virtual Virginia, but it is unique to see the types of offerings within these professional learning offerings statewide. And one that I want to call out here in the corner is that reading specialist micro-credential through the department. Very successful offering, but also a unique way of doing professional learning. It's a micro-credential. That's a word we hear, and sometimes we know they're out there. That's a real micro-credential, a successful one happening in the Commonwealth today. And it's really exciting to see that continue to grow. Even this year, about 1/3 of the enrollments for that micro-credential have come in since July 1. Okay, so thank you. That's a summary of Virtual Virginia updates. Again, very high level. More is in your packet, and I'll be happy to answer questions later or whenever you guys have them about the program. Thanks, Reg.
Thank you, Dr. Mott. We always enjoy working with our Virtual Virginia staff and Dr. Mott, who really do a great job with offering not only what you've seen as online courses for students, but professional learning, the statewide LMS, and we're so proud of the programs. At this point of the meeting, we want to engage you and to break into groups. Basically, we've already divided you into 3 groups, and you will have a facilitator from the department with your group to kind of guide you. You will need to take some notes, and because you'll be providing feedback to the entire committee as we go through this exercise. So we basically have articulated the problem, or we'll use a problem statement that you'll see in just a moment. But we would like for you to discuss and generate any questions, feedback, things that might impact your area that you'll be reviewing today. And then any solutions or impact for implementation, things that you might use to strengthen that particular area or document or website that you'll be reviewing. So the problem statement is Virginia schools must effectively leverage virtual learning options and advanced courses to ensure that students are connected for remote learning, which we'll dive into that, and provide online professional learning for education. So again, when you look at your packet on the left side, you'll have an excerpt from the Virginia Educational Technology Plan. That's group 1. You'll have online, you'll need to use your devices. Group 2, you'll be going online to the virtual learning hub or the website at the department. And group 3, you have what we call the report regarding online courses and virtual programs. And this is a part of a report that goes to the governor each year. So you have 3 important areas that impact virtual learning. On the right side, you have graphic organizers, which has the question as well as the problem statement and the information that you need to take notes. And so you can just easily take your notes onto your graphic organizer. So we wanted everyone to have all sections. However, you only need to use the graphic organizer for your group. So let's see. Group 1 is going to be looking at our ed tech plan. And Keisha, Tennessee, raise your hand. So all of you who are kind of around Keisha, Ernie, Dr. John Murray, Elmer, Dwayne Huff, in for Raymond, and John, that's group 1. The virtual learning website is here with Ryan. So Dr. Mott, Garrett Smith, Robert Graham, Lincoln Whitaker, Amy Griffith, and Dr. Wallace. Then over here, Meg Foley, Dr. McFoley. That's group 3. We have AJ, Megan, Tom, Trey Davis, Robbie Mason, or Karen Thompson, and Calypso's also part of that group. So you'll have about 15 minutes to discuss among your groups, review your documents, and then be ready to give feedback. Any questions about what we're doing? The first group, Keisha has the technology plan portion. Second group, Ryan, you'll be looking at the website. And third group, you have the large document, and you can actually go to page 82 and 113. All right. Questions?
Thank you. We are kind of actually.
That we can make it work. You can recall the problem statement is here on our graphic.
groups, I hope that we have someone designated to share out now
Yes.
this time, and Dr. Wallace has arrived, so we'll welcome her after this discussion. So we could have,
Follow anybody.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. We're gonna set the bar, right? We're gonna set the bar.
Virginia Learning Advisory Committee, problem statement one, virtual learning, annual report to the governor regarding online courses and programs. So I'm not sure if you guys have a copy of that in the back tonight.
They do.
We discussed it, you know, what else needs to be in the submission, I guess, and we talked about different school systems that don't all do virtual Virginia, or they might do a second or third or fourth party program. One of them being Prince William, where sometimes they do their own thing. And how do we collect that information systematically in a timely manner to get that to the governor? So we kicked ideas around about using obviously our SSWS system that would be able to submit that. Of course, it would be interesting because we're in the era now where everything's just continuously growing in this field of online learning. We talked the pros and cons of all of it. And I think some of the other, the state doesn't require you have to have online learning options. I think a lot of that's to do probably with internet capability in a lot of remote areas. And then what else did I miss?
No, I think you did.
Yeah,
I think you did
that's
a really thing. So we were talking about how, right now, this is an appendix to the board's, annual report to the governor about virtual programs. And, the key, as he stated so eloquently, was really that there is another option versus just Virginia and multi-division online provider program. And school divisions are also providing their own option. And so would we be able in some way to reflect that in another section of this appendix? And so then we started brainstorming as far as what would that data collection look like? Because if you have two options, school division, you could be either a virtual school or a virtual program. And if it's a virtual program, that information doesn't come to the department. Whereas if it's a school with the school number, it might be a little bit easier to get that information. So that's why we kind of brainstormed on what might that look like. And then we went also into, I think what you were thinking when we just discussed last was attendance.
Right.
That same question that's been since, I can remember the last 9 years at the Department of Education. How do we count attendance? How do we count hours versus 990 hours versus seat time for virtual? How do we capture that and make sure that is entered with fidelity? And school divisions really struggle in that area. So we kind of went a little bit off of our report into that area and had some really good discussion about what would that look like as well.
Because it does affect, sorry, the attendance does affect that because our kids will miss days, but then they do all that work.
Right.
Because of the flexibility of online learning, and it's just been amazing to have that flexibility. But at the same time, we're hit with, 10 problems. So, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, it just feels like, you have two of your largest school districts without data in here about online learning, right? Prince William and Fairfax. And we have thousands of students each year in our program. So if we're reporting on virtual learning to the governor and that legislation, you're missing key data that it could be perceived that students are not receiving that online learning.
We've got two in this room. We got Chesterfield too. Prince
Right.
William and Chesterfield
Yeah.
sitting here right here.
Yeah.
So that's us, Reg. So group number 2, well
Thank
done,
you.
group 3.
Excellent.
Good teamwork.
All right, group 2 had the virtual learning website, the hub.
Oh, that's us. Okay, I will start. We looked at the website and I believe our group was focused on what's missing from that website, what pieces would be helpful to students, schools, and families. And the first we talked about was that up there too? Why am I here? Like if I go to a website, there's a reason. I'm looking for something. It's not organized in that way. Like if I'm looking for K-5 solutions, middle school, high school, advanced courses, homeschooling, it should be broken out that way on the website. If you go to look at the website now, it's just a breakdown of what kind of virtual options are available. that's not really a top-down approach. That's kind of in the middle, like, okay, I know what I'm looking for. Now, where do I go find that? So maybe the landing page, the first page should be why I'm here. What am I looking for? What kind of solution do I need?
Yeah, and I'm gonna jump in here with the mock part of this. We have a virtual school. Those students are not doing as well as our brick and mortar students. And maybe we should see some of that comparison. How are the kids in the virtual environment doing as compared to students in brick and mortar? Now, we put forth an initiative, we have goals, we want to be, top 40 in the state. I can't promise you, these virtual kids are on board with that because they're all over the state, right? They're not coming to those groups, those meetings, all the class stuff. So there is that. And I feel like that if parents are looking at this, maybe they want to know what really is the best option for my child. Is this mock better than this one? And are they both better or worse than sending my kid to a brick and mortar school?
And I'll say, I did not use ChatGPT till we did the exercise. So I didn't put it into ChatGPT until we'd already talked and it did validate what we said. So.
Very validation.
So, it needs to be easier to access, especially since there's a family component to it. You have to go through, even when I Googled this site, it took me somewhere else to this committee actually. And then I went by the breadcrumbs at the top to get to the site. So easier to access. The design, it's very wordy, lots of words. And so it's not like visually, I hate to say visually appealing, but if I was a parent, I went to it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me. Even though there's not a lot, it's too many words. So more design with more visually appealing, easier access to different parts. And like it was just said that have some success stories or different scenarios, stories and testimonials, whether it's data of, how it's worked. And I think Rob, I said this, see what I was going to say. The different type, what is it? What were you going to say? You said, like you have on your site, the characteristics of a successful online student. These are the things that they do. And these are the practices that they have. It's a Brian, Rob, because I was thinking of last. So anyway, that kind of thing. What does a successful online learner do to be successful?
Especially if that's, this is your first experience and you're looking for online options, that'd be helpful information to have up front. What are the characteristics of successful online learning? Then what are the options? Where do I go from there? So a little bit of organization structure.
The other thing we got started down here, I wanted to bring back up was how's the website aligned to CT? It seems like we have a robust program in Pulaski, but there's still holes in it. And we try to get students into some of these virtual courses, and conversation was how do you teach a kid well virtually? So there's going to be, I'm sure we could use AI and those great little goggles, but at the end of the day, I'm going to trust a mechanic who's done a brake job on a real car, so that I'm going to trust one who's done one on a virtual.
And that kind of goes to, maybe less for families, but for schools, if with the 3E readiness indicator having, was it high demand? I might say the terminology wrong. High demand, to get more points if a student has completed high demand CTE courses, and a lot of divisions aren't going to have those courses. So we've heard the answer is going to be virtual. So where do I find that on this site for really quick access? That's pretty much for a school division, though, I think.
So catering to different audiences,
Yeah.
catering to students, to families, and to schools, and then breaking out from there. We were very critical, if you can't, no, I'm just kidding.
We count on it.
Excellent feedback. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move into group one.
Group one.
Virginia Educational Technology Plan excerpt.
We did, and we opened our discussion really discussing how, the success of our problem statement, expanding virtual learning opportunities, as well as remote learning, acceleration, advanced courses. The reality is that it will vary school division from school division. But then we discussed what are some of those factors, and some of that is historical. Perhaps that school division has always had secondary opportunities with virtual learning opportunities. Chesterfield is a part of this group, and they mentioned that they've had secondary courses for over 20 years. So it's not in response to the pandemic, but both Chesterfield and Hampton have both mentioned that they have expanded their virtual learning opportunities through their courses that they had provided during the pandemic. So we know that some school divisions are maintaining things that began during the pandemic, and some school divisions already had that structure in place. And so I do think, going to the conversations earlier, a little bit more data on all of the school divisions of where they are and perhaps even historically where they've been with virtual learning opportunities would be important. We also discussed remote days, so our remote learning days. And so how we can have more information in the technology plan of giving greater guidance of what counts as a remote learning day. And so really maybe like a checklist or some recommendations about this is a successful remote learning day, maybe some factors of determining asynchronous or synchronous. Sometimes that factor just comes as, do they have snow days in the bank? And that determines if it's asynchronous or synchronous. You know, overall, the school divisions have the infrastructure, the devices. It's really just knowing the characteristics and what will be viewed as a solidified, approved remote learning day. No longer is it about, do they have the network? Do they have the Chromebooks or the laptops, or the teachers having professional development? They are doing that and providing that. They just need a little bit more guidance from us at the department of what really constitutes as a remote learning day. So we discussed as well as the opportunities for acceleration. School divisions that have specialty programs. Virtual learning has provided the flexibility for students to engage in perhaps especially high school, and so they can take another course and still enroll in something of that nature. Likewise, teacher capacity. So we discussed Chesterfield has a program called Focus, in which they partner perhaps a long-term sub with a licensed teacher with experience of online learning, and together they collaborate and they pair together to teach a course. Right now, most of the courses are in math, but together those teachers teach that course. Students still come in live. The teacher or the sub at the moment is handling all of the hands-on activities, but the teacher with the license and the experience is providing that direct instruction virtually. What's really nice about this is that the pair work together consistently wherever there is a need. And so that is managed by a central office, and they're not tied to one individual school. What's also beneficial from this is that that annual sub, because they've had that kind of peer and that partner in teaching, they may decide to now move forward and become a certified teacher. So it's a clever way to also address capacity and build their own teacher pipeline at the same time. So they've been in about 3 to 4 years of that program. So not only are we using virtual learning to address students' needs, but also teacher capacity needs as well. We were wrapping up our conversation discussing the standards, my favorite part of the conversation. And really, how do we help school divisions really implement DLI and CS? Because oftentimes they do get the back seat, that was the phrase, just based upon all of the other demands of the school division. One recommendation is to really call out the DLI standards, framing it around the portrait of a graduate, because a lot of school divisions have a lot of resources already framed around the portrait of a graduate. So that summarizes our conversation, unless anyone else would like to. By group, they had already told me that I was speaking, so, but just in case I missed anything.
One of the things I did.
Thank you, Elma.
One of the things I did mention in our discussion, well, centered around a topic that came up, and that is the pandemic. And I think we talked about factors that impact whether you are implementing online learning or not. I think in some cases, school divisions trying to implement online learning on the fly, it was such a negative experience for them that factors into how they approach online learning now. It's because they think that what they experienced is what online learning is, and it's not. And so that's one of the hurdles you have to clear in order to get those school divisions moving forward. That's not true for everyone, but I'm sure it is a factor.
Thank you so much. We have awesome engagement and feedback, and we have captured those notes from each group, and we thank you. We want to, at this time, go back to sharing. Since Dr. Wallace has arrived, we welcome you to the meeting, and we certainly want to allow you to provide greetings and go back to a slide that belongs to you. So I just want to showcase that through Zoom. Here we go.
Well, good morning, everyone. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Wallace. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction for the Virginia Department of Education. This is my second meeting with you guys, so I see some familiar faces around the room. Also understand that we have some substitutions, but we've had a great representation. It is great to see our small and large school divisions together, as well as our community partners. This work is really exciting, and the work of this committee, as well as the work of the Ed Tech and Classroom Innovation Office at VDOE, is really gaining momentum, particularly with the computer science standards and the update to those standards and the requirement that they are to be integrated into content areas at the elementary level. This is, I think, an area where our elementary teachers are overwhelmed as it is with new standards in English and math, and particularly with the Virginia Literacy Act. However, we do know that there are natural fits for computer science standards in our content areas. And so we'll be working a lot to help with the training of those areas and, feedback that you provide. And I know Keisha loves talking computer science integration, but feedback that you have is really important to us. Couple of different things. I think you've already looked at the resource hub. Continue to give your feedback on that. We have that for all content areas, so you can even view other areas or other contents if you would like. But continue your feedback on that support framework. And then also our virtual learning website. We're making changes overall to our websites. And so if you weren't the group that looked at the website, please visit the websites and continue that feedback is really what I wanted to say here, because we know that some of you were going to be given direct feedback, and but it's not set up for an opportunity for all of you to give that feedback. So we do appreciate it. We're always looking to make things easier on our parents and easier on our students. And I think one of the most remarkable things in listening to your discussions is that parent connection. Sometimes our parents go to our websites, well, sometimes our staff, VDOE staff go to our website and are overwhelmed by the way it looks, much less a parent who is trying to navigate a difficult time or difficult situation for their child. And a lot of times we do get the phone calls. They usually end up with Calypso. My child is struggling in-person instruction. I want them to be in virtual learning. How do I do that in my division? What are my options? And so we want to make sure that that is clear for our families, and that we do have Virtual Virginia, but we also have the MOPS, and then we also have the other programs in Virginia that don't fall into those categories. So it's great to hear the feedback from Chesterfield and Prince William on there's data out there too that you have, and you're serving a lot of kids. And maybe our legislators and our governor don't realize that because it's not captured in the current framework of our reporting. So appreciate your time here. Know that we do take your comments very seriously, and really appreciate your time to travel here and your time just to be with us and provide those comments. We're doing a lot of great work. AI is gaining momentum, and that is also coming out of this office. We're doing a lot more with ITRTs. I heard things about training. We're trying to get our ITRTs reconnected with our content area specialists so that they can provide classroom supports as well. And that is, maybe something we need to look at also in the virtual setting, right? Like how ITRTs can really help those virtual learning teachers to be innovative too. So just thank you. Enjoy your lunch. Enjoy your the rest of the meeting today, and safe travels when you do leave this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wallace. And as she mentioned, lunch is here. So we will Well, we're so thankful for lunch again. Welcome back from lunch. And there's another perspective that I'd like to share. The same student, Denasia Watson, from the CETA conference, gives us additional views on being a successful learner. I heard some comments from our activities, our previous activities, about maybe implementing the characteristics of a successful online learner on the website. So let's listen to Ms. Watson.
And Denasia.
Kind of going off of what Dre was saying, my 7th and 8th grade year were entirely on Zoom. So universal connectivity to me just reminds me of middle school, and it reminds me of where I was coming from culturally and economically, because coming from Philadelphia, which is such a diverse city, racially, economically, there was a lot of my classmates who didn't have access to internet, and there was a lot of people and a lot of spaces where we were provided with the same exact opportunities, and it made us feel special that people cared enough to make sure we had an equal 7th grade year and an equal 8th grade year. And the way it works in Philadelphia is you apply to your high schools and it's ranked like that. You kind of apply like it's college. So I know me and my classmates felt very special that people cared and they could go out of their way to make sure we were where we needed to be academically on math levels and on English levels. And we were there and we saw our teachers every day. I graduated middle school over Zoom. So universal connectivity and free internet is such a big thing when you're talking about kids who are coming from lower income backgrounds and stuff like that.
Now, isn't it wonderful that in Virginia we can talk about students being successful, students that have online opportunities, students that have a wide range. We have technology directors sitting in this room who ensure that their students have access to technology. And now I know that when Ms. Tennessee was talking, she said, going beyond that now, going beyond the equipment, going beyond the access, is now we have to branch out and do additional training with teachers to be successful. We talked about pairing maybe a sub with a veteran teacher to increase capacities. Dr. Wallace noted that we still have work to do as we're integrating computer science standards, and we're embellishing all of the standards in the content areas. We have gifted programs. So we have so many opportunities that also impact online and blended learning in Virginia. So again, this highlights the work that we're doing, and we're so proud. And now we have new legislation. So when we look at this Virginia bill, as you take a look at that, I am going to just read this and highlight some of these words. Shall develop and post on the website guidelines and information relating to virtual learning. These are things that you just talked about. How can we enhance our virtual learning website to include statewide policies related to virtual learning, the availability of online and virtual options, pertinent information such as guidelines for educators related to online policies and best practices, continue the training that we're doing in Virginia. And then the department shall provide these guidelines to allow dissemination to school boards for distribution to parents. And then we need to update and make sure that we keep this current annually. This last bullet really refers to the Department of Criminal Justice Services. And the portion in the middle talks a lot about safety. We are representing virtual learning. So the safety part is in another department, and we can continue that discussion, but we're not going to be directly responsible for that. But then the components of this audit that we will do each year, we'll talk about remote learning and closures and what you do to keep students and educators safe during public health emergencies. So we have some questions, and I'm really going to ask our Associate Director, Calypso Gilstrap, to just reflect on this bill and add some additional notes as we have a discussion about these questions.
Right, so a little bit more history too about this bill is that it came out of the JLARC report of the pandemic response. So I think that's the reason it's in the safety part of the bill. And when you're looking at a legislative piece like this, if you haven't before, the italics is the new legislation and it did pass both sides with no comments from the public. So we're really excited about any opportunity to elevate virtual learning. And then also to make another point, Elmer talked about that a little bit, that emergency remote learning is not virtual learning. And also virtual learning is not remote learning. So we're really trying to distinguish the difference between remote learning and virtual learning. Virtual learning can be part of remote learning, but we don't want to talk about snow plows and delivery of food to children. That's not the responsibility of this agency. That's the responsibility of the Department of Criminal Justice Services and also the Department of Emergency Management. So, so as you guys look at the bill and look at these questions, kind of be thinking about that lens of how do we, as a committee, better, I guess, market virtual learning to where people don't have that anxiety. I mean, I was a middle school teacher during COVID, and I was a librarian, and I was in a room like this where I had like 30 kids on a computer with the things, and I was doing hybrid where I had 30 kids at home, and that was stressful and wasn't very innovative, and we were, that was not what virtual learning is supposed to look like. So so let's start with, what is the definition of virtual learning during remote learning days? So what are some suggestions that you guys would have to help us define better that distinguishment between remote learning? Because I think most people think remote learning means I'm on a computer at my house on Teams, versus what is virtual learning, which could be I'm in a MOP, I'm in a virtual Virginia situation, I'm at my school's virtual academy, I'm doing a homeschool program. So what is what kind of words do you think distinguish those things? Me, I thought snow plows is the difference. Remote learning includes snow plows or emergency aid. Anybody can share. Just feel free to throw it out there. Any first thoughts?
Personalized learning?
Personalized learning? Is virtual learning is for personalized learning?
Flexibility.
Flexibility is virtual learning?
One is plan. So like virtual learning is planned, is strategic. You're gonna start this, you're gonna finish this. Remote supports the unplanned.
Yeah, that's one thing Reggie and I keep saying is an unplanned remote learning day. And that is like, we didn't put it in the schedule on purpose. Of course, in the ideal world, we would love it if school divisions move to where virtual learning days are incorporated in their regular school calendar. And maybe you have a day of like service or project-based learning or cross-curricular innovation and those type things. And that could actually be built into your, especially with our seat flexibility that we're going to be allowed to have. So, okay, so we have planned, purposeful, flexible, personalized.
Can I just follow up what Brian said, just thinking about our discussion? I think what Hampton described is a planned remote learning day for the unplanned school closure. So we don't want people to think that remote learning means just whatever comes to mind. It still should be planned and structured like around.
Okay, so planned remote learning on an unplanned, on an unscheduled day off.
I don't know yet.
Scheduled.
Yeah.
We will have to ask some AI agents to help. Like, wow. And then put some human intellect on top of it. So.
And for me, as a parent, virtual learning is, okay, my son is taking a virtual course with a virtual teacher who does that as a specialty. Remote may be, this is their classroom teacher performing remotely, not out of their specialty, right? It may not be designed that way.
Yeah, that's good. A virtual learning is a course. It is a program. It is a school. A remote learning is a special situation or circumstance. I think remote learning is for everyone in a community and virtual learning, so that might be too, the distinguishment that virtual learning is personalized, individualized, and remote learning is the entire community. Okay, so what do we need to do to help our teachers when there's gonna be a remote learning day? So we don't wanna wait until they're calling the snow day, train our teachers. I think of this as like the sub plans, you know, you're, you know, at the beginning of the year when they make you have the emergency sub plan folder and you're, just in case you call in sick and, you know, it was totally unplanned. So what do we need to do to make sure that our remote learning days, that the teachers are prepared to host a class like Dr. Mott just said?
When we took a few days off, I think it was a total of 8, first couple of days, we realized some other counties said, hey, virtual learning or remote, and we weren't ready. And so when we did come back and said, all right, we've got to be prepared for another snow, and it was like a week. And so we had an administrative meeting, we sent out information to our staff, they knew, and what came back was basically, we really weren't gonna open up new instruction on those days. It was more reflective learning, you know, going back over same exercises, kind of review type. So we had a couple of days like that. We thought after about 2 days that was going to be enough, and then the snow stopped. Because when you stay in that world, it's not the depth that you want. But that's how we kind of evolved to it. And we had some time to plan it about a week and a half out to let all the teachers know, expect if we do this, to have virtual learning. But we all agreed there's probably not new topics to be discussed. So that's how that came back.
So maybe what type of instruction is happening on a remote learning day? Yes.
We need to ensure that they have internet. Or
So we do know that that's gonna have to be part of the remote learning plan, and again, that's probably not our lane. It would have to be like, this is the scenario where they have virtual learning access, and also like, what's the exceptions to the kids who are in, because this all depends on, is it a public health emergency? Is it an emergency?
Right, well, I'm not
with the
talking to
weather?
kids, like, we
That
have
kind of stuff.
teachers that will
Yeah.
come and say,
So-
I don't have internet.
Yeah, so, but again, that goes back to the Department of Emergency Management.
Yeah.
Kind of is in that bucket, but we do know that our plans, whatever they are, will be, you can't do new instruction because we don't know if the teacher's gonna be available, we don't
Right.
know if the students are 100% gonna be available.
That
What does
makes sense.
attendance look like on those days for those type of population? That kind of thing. So parents might not be at home to support learning like that, those kind of things. So, but that is an excellent, valid point, and we will make sure, because that's also the reason broadband is also a problem for teachers for grading papers, but we were hoping with the BEAD money, we'll quickly be able to have broadband in every house in the next 2 years. So, all right, we had a comment in the back. Yes.
Within Hampton, we provide, the digital learning specialists give virtual learning management training, excuse me, in August to all of the teachers. So best practices and, you know, what to do in a Zoom room and teaching virtually. We also help them set up their Zoom links ahead of time, so they're all on spreadsheets, so that they can get to them. We also go over Go Guardian, so that they can monitor the students within that platform. Even in the classroom, they need to know how to use Go Guardian as well. But we try to front load a lot of that stuff ahead of time, and then moving closer to any kinds of, you know, weather is a little dicey. We try to remind them of the best practices and things like that. Hey, check your Zoom link, make sure it still works. Practice it with the teacher. You know, the digital learning specialists do push in quite a bit to help the teachers with all of that. And then we also have, if we are shut down for virtual learning, my entire department, we have a Zoom help desk open the entire day. So teachers can jump in, parents can jump in, students can jump in with any issues that they have in that time frame as well.
So help desk.
Yes.
Write that down, Rachel. We
Yeah.
haven't thought of that.
I have that.
Yep. During COVID, I was standing out there underneath the canopy, you know, helping kids with, I don't know why this isn't working. Let's get it figured out. Okay, so speaking of what you just talked about, Go Guardian and other ways we communicate with parents, what do you think we could do to help our school divisions? Like, what would be the minimum? You know, we can't get into use Go Guardian at the Virginia Department of Education, but what would be your suggestions for us communicating with parents for remote learning? One thing we just got feedback on was making sure, you know, you have the person with the most personality calling the snow day, making also sure that they understand that virtual learning is going to be happening that day. So whoever the person is, everybody's excited to hear from is the one that clarifies it is going to be an asynchronous or a synchronous type day and what does that mean? What else would we need to do? What's the best avenue for talking to parents? Yes, Dr. Mustachio.
Zip time management is a thing. So for people who are very well intentioned and wanting to help their elementary school kids have their chargers right at their desk and zip tied to their desk in a way that they can have their charger there all the time. From one tech director explaining in a situation where they needed to go remote quickly, they had to get quickly a group of people into the building with the wire cutters to cut all the zip ties, to get all the chargers ready for the kids to be able to have their chargers so they could take home for an undisclosed number of days. So, you know, small things like that as far as thinking through the process of what happens during a remote day.
Yeah, and like the supply list for parents, like just like we have the supply list at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the year, you need your Ticonderoga pre-sharpened pencils. These are the supplies you would need for a remote learning day.
I think you need to communicate at the beginning of the year, right? Like just ongoing, hey, just you know, this is how we're gonna handle remote learning if it were to occur. Potential of bad weather coming, just to be prepared, like those constant reminders. Whether it's a text message, a phone call, newsletter that we send out, whatever.
However you're communicating with school should be the same method. Yep. All right, and then look back at the bill, kind of look at that list. If I go back one, there we go. We're looking at this list, statewide policies, which ironically have no statewide policies, so that would be 0, but we were gonna fix that. So what can we do? We already kind of talked about the website a little bit. What else can we do to help make sure we get these 3 things communicated out to the field? So we have statewide policies, the availability of learning options. I think we already kind of talked about that too, like our report to the governor. That will be an important place for us to communicate those better. Maybe adding to we have a query tool that helps us communicate what mock programs are available, doing a better job of making sure that's available with other virtual learning programs. And then last, what are the guidelines or what are the best practices for our educators? So kind of go back with those 3 buckets in mind. So we have policy, availability, and professional learning. So we do a lot of those things, but we obviously need to do more. There's a new bill for it. So what can we do to make those things better? We don't want to like in a year ago, we didn't do anything because we're already awesome.
I know one of the important things that you mentioned is reshaping the website. For example, communicating with parents. I think now it's going to be important that what we're talking about, the training, information about remote learning needs to be on the website as well.
I'm just gonna visualize like a little video clip for parents and a reminder every time there is like people could reference it whenever there is a snow day where they're gonna be doing virtual learning or whatever, that, you know, like a video clip, a reminder of what it is and what they're supposed to be doing or something like, I don't know, something. I don't know how they access it. I'm just thinking, how do you get it in front of parents? Do they know where?
Public media partnership that might work out for making videos and delivering those to parents. It sounds like a great way to spend our public media dollars is to make a virtual learning option package.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's an opportune time to say, you know, this whole conversation goes back to his comment earlier on virtual learning or remote learning may not have been the best in some areas, and we maybe need to rebrand remote learning versus virtual learning, and just making sure that parents understand and teachers understand. So
Yeah, I agree. I never really thought about it that way until you all said it. You know, when people think of virtual remote, or they're thinking about what happened during the pandemic, and they're not thinking about the way it is now.
Very much. Well, and really defining virtual learning is the big word, but then you have hybrid, blended. Online learning can actually be happening in a classroom. I mean, that's what most of our high school students are having online learning every day. It's just not, it is virtual sometimes it's not. So yeah, so really, we need to better define and market. And I think a video clip of those will help everyone too. And then also maybe some of that beginning of the year training package for school divisions to be like, show these to your teachers. So this is best practice, making sure your links work and they're well published and sent to teachers. You should know how to send a communication to all the parents in your class. How are you going to deal with your special needs students and your students who don't speak English as their first language and those type things. So awesome. Well, are there any last thoughts about House Bill 2640? Right. Well, as we start working on implementing this, we will be writing a report in October to go to the House and Senate to talk about what we've done on this bill. So of course, you guys will be very aware of that in December or November, whenever we have our next VLAC meeting. But we really do look forward to your feedback. We'll probably send you some of those things as we're working on them and being like, hey, you guys remember you asked for a video? Well, here's a first draft, and you know, we'd love to hear your feedback and those kind of things. And as things come up with your divisions, like in your region, that's the purpose of this. Is just because we're having a meeting today and we don't have another one until the fall, we want to hear that as the year goes on too. So this is a formal meeting, but we would love to hear from you throughout the year as you go back to school and think about what are we doing for remote learning training and those kind of things. We want to hear what's happening and what works really well and what concerns you have, because at the state level, we know use cases work best. Everybody likes to hear what everybody else is doing and duplicating that. So speaking of that, we have 2 highlights. We're super excited to tell you 2 success stories from our schools.
And thanks to Loudoun County Schools, who brought this forth about you can see the Buffalo Trail Elementary School, where these elementary students were doing a writing project. And they actually used the technology to create these lenses, revising their work. So as they wrote, they created these, and the teacher took seeing through new lens. So kind of using that theme, and they designed their own using the CAD software and the 3D printers. And they related that back to what they were writing. So I thought that was a clever way to, connect English, SOL, along with technology. These high school students went beyond that and started designing tools and applications and equipment that students with disabilities could use. So this was very innovative. They designed these tools and equipment, and they put them in the hands of students with disabilities, and then those students gave feedback on the operation and how well they paired together. So that's an awesome example of how, again, we're working together to pair content area and instructional technology. So speaking of instructional technology and innovative ways to expand virtual and remote learning, let's talk about and switch gears to generative AI. And I'm going to bring Calypso back up to talk about what we're doing at the department with AI.
Yes. So I appreciate, because a lot of the people in this room have been part of our AI initiatives. And so this might be a review for some of you, but we really wanted to kind of give you guys the overall strategic vision, because you may have only been one part of it, and now we want to kind of go over all of it. And this will be going before the Board of Education on May 21st as part of their business meeting. And we will continue to work with the governor's office very closely as to what the AI initiatives are as a whole state, because education is a really important part of the overall task force that he has. So about a year and a half ago, Executive Order number 30 came out, and it asked the Virginia Department of Education to develop and issue tools, instructional resources, and to support integration of AI into the classroom. And that included creating AI education guidelines. We worked with Chev and the Virginia Community College System to make sure that our students are fully equipped to be able to use AI when they go into the the workforce. So the guidelines were then written, they were published in December of 24, and December of 23. They're all, it seems like so fast, all at the same time. So the guidelines then for AI integration focused on the effective use and the responsible use. There was actually just a national report that came out and really talked about how Virginia really did the best part of talking about do no harm for our students and our teachers. Like that is really unique in our guidance. And another thing that's really unique about our guidance is we do not just talk about K-12. We talk about what does it look like in the community college system? What does it look like in higher education? And what does it look like in the workforce? So the three key factors that we have in our guidance is the guiding principles, making sure that AI is ethically used, that we're ensuring there's privacy and security and fairness first, and that it also should support education and not replace humans. It should be like enhancing education, not supplementing education. We think that schools should provide AI training for teachers specifically, and then integrate AI into the curriculum. It shouldn't be the icing on the cake. It should be part of the cake. And then last, we want to make sure that there are responsibilities like our policymakers, our education, the educators and our institutions all have specific roles in that guidance and talking about who's responsible for what inside of that guidance. So if you haven't read those the executive order and the guidelines, I recommend reiterating them, and then also elevating those to your teachers so they really understand where we're going as a whole state. And it's not just like VDOE says, that it's like, no, the whole Commonwealth is moving this direction because we are such a technology savvy state. Then on April 23rd, the White House came out with Advancing Artificial Intelligence Education for American Youth, which was the executive order from Donald Trump's office. And it was really great to read this order because I was like, we're already doing half of those things. So, you know, we always like to be first and think we're an example. So this focused on embedding AI in education, which we already talked about that. And then it also wants us to do better with AI literacy, having early engagement with our AI concepts, and then having extensive training for our teachers, which we already are doing those things. As you know, in our computer science standards, we have AI. We have done teacher training, which I'm going to talk about here more in a second. And then also we believe in AI literacy in everyday learning, not just like, oh, again, it's not special. So after we passed after we got the executive order, we came up with our guidance, we started incorporating AI into our standards. So our computer science standards and our English standards of learning have both passed since the executive order and the guidelines came out. And those approved standards in the front matter specifically address AI. So if you have people who are hesitant about AI, we would say this is in our standards of learning, and it's not just in our computer science standards and our digital learning standards. It is in our English standards because we want to talk about responsible use and how we collaborate with robots. Miss Tennessee is now going to come up and talk specifically about, you get as much time as you want, but she does love to talk about her computer science standards. So yeah, so you're on the camera.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I think as Calypso pointed out, it's important to know that AI literacy is interdisciplinary. And so that's why you're going to see them in our guiding principles. And currently you see them in the 2024 English and computer science, but they'll likely be forthcoming in all updated standards as well. In computer science, we are pretty much leading the way of being intentional about embedding AI literacy in our standards. We've done it in a very seamless approach, really leveraging on computer science as foundational knowledge to understand the development of AI, as well as becoming more technical in expanding students' understanding of AI. So this is starting as early as our K students, really focusing more so on input, output, data processing, up until our upper elementary, where they do start discussing machine learning concepts such as labeled data sets, reinforcement learning, supervised learning, unsupervised learning. All of that is within K-5. Once we get to middle school, we really take more of a deeper dive and call out AI explicitly and really get into other elements of AI. Of course, as you get into the secondary level, because computer science is more so broad, we will discuss neural networks and things of that nature, but our goal is to prepare students for other specialized courses, say within the CTE realm, which there is an AI fundamentals course under development.
All right, thank you. That was impressive. Yeah, Miss Tennessee will always come and talk to you more. So, and then up next, we have Dr. Meg Foley, who is our digital learning coordinator. Talk about the VLAC.
And Mr. Pitney. So Ryan's gonna take the long way around and we're timed. And I have notes because last meeting, I went way over. So, so I have a few notes. And so together, Ryan and I are team digital learning. And as such, our focus is on supporting the Virginia Educational Technology Plan. And a huge component of that are the digital learning integration standards. And so we are going to share today a little bit of how the DLI for short standards have the close ties. It might not be explicitly stated, but very close ties to artificial intelligence do exist. And as well, group one, I do want to let you know that yes, we have those connections to the profile of a graduate right in those digital learning integration standards. So we hear you and they are there. So the DLI standards, the 7 concept strands align with the 7 student goals of ISTE. And they also have the learning priorities that naturally align to artificial intelligence. So as you see the digital citizen strand, there are 3 key learning priorities that intersect with AI. A major challenge of generative AI is bias. As we know, I just had some of that in myself when I was going through for something, and hallucinations where AI told me that there was a great AI evaluation tool. It did not exist. As I asked for it to tell me, who was the developer? It said, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for having me be better because I made that. So it will tell you. So as educators, we need to ensure that we are helping our students to recognize that there is some bias and that they can understand copyright and intellectual property as well, and privacy and security concerns. Within the knowledge constructor strand, it's the focus of curating and utilizing diverse digital and assistive technologies. So this again is where some of those computers, the AI, can generate falsehoods. They can actually make up references that do not exist. So we want to, as educators, ensure that we are teaching our students how to verify their sources, how to fact check, and how to critically analyze the information that they encounter. And with the empowered learning strand, students are guided to demonstrate their technological competency through the effective use of AI. They're encouraged to build networks and customize AI-driven processes. But by focusing on basic tech skills like troubleshooting and exploring new AI tools, we need to help our students learn to make better decisions and build the technical skills needed to succeed in our digitally driven environment. Thank you. If we stand together, one of us is completely cut off from the camera because I'm down here and Ryan is up there.
So as we look at the next the next 2 strands and we look at creative communicator and global collaborator, AI can help enhance student engagement by acting as a thought partner. And this is probably something that you see in a lot of schools, and we even use it ourselves where we're trying to think of an idea, we're getting stuck. That whole idea of writer's block, I feel like is going to disappear in certain regards. So thinking about that and acting as a partner can help boost student confidence in order to assist in everyday tasks like having discussions and even their writing. And you're starting to see some of that now. And then it can also act as a connecting agent to allow personalized learning, right? To be able to have that ability to not only get that information, but also to be able to share it with others. And then finally, with innovative designer and computational thinker. So it's vital for students at this point to understand how to use AI as a brainstorming partner and to help generate new ideas and even highlight connections that maybe they miss on the first time of processing it. And then with computational thinking, AI can break things down into manageable parts. So thinking about this idea of prediction, testing, refining, and then finally solving, students can break it apart into smaller portions and then be able to solve those problems. So thank you.
Job digital learning. I'm a speech, drama, and debate coach, so I just always love a good speaker. So we got the executive order, we passed guidelines, or we wrote guidelines, we have passed two sets of standards that definitely have it integrated, specifically digital learning. When we revise those, I'm sure we'll be adding to AI. So then it was time for educator training. So we did a new model with our Germanna Community College, where we basically were able to work with Germanna, and Germanna then went out to all the other community colleges and built partnerships for us to deliver in-person training about generative AI. It was just a basic foundation overview. It was a lot of tools and fun and just engaging with AI and talking about, you know, bias and those things about hallucinations and those kind of things, but also how do you become more efficient as a teacher using AI. So we had 360 educators participate in person, and that was a train the trainer model. So those 360 teachers then could go out. We did sell out. That was the maximum capacity of what we were able to do. And then we had 70 educators that were invited to present at our March 27th showcase, where we basically took all those things that the teachers learned and then took back to their school divisions and implemented and did some really super cool stuff. We had a keynote speaker. It was really, really important work. What was super cool for me is that by the end of all of this training, 89% of the participants said the workshop was excellent, which if you've ever looked at reviews from a conference, you know 89.7, so doing great. And this is even more important, especially for this committee to think about. 100% of the participants said, we want more training like this. So we really need to start thinking about how does this professional development work, and doing better at getting that, leveraging into the local communities and working with our community colleges to provide that professional development, working better with our EPP programs to make sure that they're providing the training to their pre-service teachers and those type of things so they're ready to teach. So we're excited about that training. One thing that we love to talk about too is our leadership workshop that we had. The Virginia Association of School Superintendents was working with Advanced Learning Partnerships, and they created cohorts, 16 cohorts of 75 different school divisions who did a four-person in-person training days. It was almost like a workshop more than training, where in the morning we learned more about each of the cool new AI tools and implications. And what was nice about that is it was throughout the whole school year. So like each month, it was crazy how much AI had changed, like in the 4 to 6 weeks in between each session. But this was really revolutionary because we had everyone from the cabinet at the table. It's unusual for you to be able to get like a superintendent, a procurement person, an instructional person, the tech director, the special education person, all sitting at a table and talking about what are we going to do with this new emerging technology. One thing that was really profound for me was I was sitting in Region 2 and the superintendent had just watched our facilitator talk to ChatGPT in another language. So like he was talking and then was translating back. And so we had two people speaking two different languages and ChatGPT was in, and she looked at her team and she was like, I want this right now. Here's my credit card. And the procurement director was like, where's that thing? And it was like, what a great profound moment for us to talk about, you know, being purposeful and strategic and those kind of things. We got similar feedback from our superintendents. At the beginning, on the first day at the beginning, we did a formative assessment. 34% of superintendents felt comfortable with integration of AI. And by the end of the 4 days, 88% felt comfortable with the integration of AI. So again, revolutionizing not just AI, but how we are training our teachers and our leaders on how we're going to do emerging technology. So really great stuff. We are looking right now, investigating how are we going to scoop up the rest of those school divisions that were not able to participate the first time. We again sold out right away. I think it was open for like 3 days and it sold out immediately. And so we know there are school divisions who still want that support.
Actually, we had planned for 60 and we ended up taking
75. Yes. And so thank you, Vass, for, you know, really expanding and squeezing in. And we've heard stories from people being like, hey, we want to come. And they're like, great, you're going to host because we're out of space. So we appreciate our partnership with Vass. And that I really do think this is the future of professional learning with our leaders. So here's one example. Albemarle County is one of our counties that has done a really great job, a product that came out of their work with VAS and ALP. And then Louisa County did some really great stuff too. So great that we decided to have them on our podcast. So we're going to watch a little excerpt from our podcast. If you guys have not subscribed, highly recommend listening to Activated Learning. We go around the state. We have 24 episodes out now where we basically spotlight places of innovation. So if you want to hear what other school divisions are doing, especially in areas of innovation, we would love for you to listen to our podcast. And if you haven't been on the podcast, I think you should all email me and tell me about something awesome that's happening in your region so we can get you on there. So, okay. Hopefully this all works, Reggie. Do I
Just hit the right arrow again.
Views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Blue Ridge PBS, the Virginia Department of Education, or the Virginia Society for Technology and Education.
I'm Tom Landon. We recently traveled to Louisa County to talk about how one small school division is successfully rolling artificial intelligence tools out to teachers and students. But when we got there, we realized it's about a lot more than that. Superintendent Doug Straley and Director of CTE STEAM and Innovation, Kenny Bowens, shared how the division has created an environment where administrators, teachers, staff, students, and community members work collaboratively to create a framework for innovation, which helps ensure the success of any new initiative, including incorporating AI in the classroom.
Well, as they say, culture isn't a thing, it's the thing, right? And so culture is so important, and to really understand how difficult teachers' jobs already are, and to be able to say, how can we help them embrace certain things that are going to make their job easier or make it a little less burdensome. And I would say what's really been important for us is in our conversations is saying we're not going to push this on anyone. We're not going to force anyone to go down this route. We're going to start with who wants to try this, who wants to be a part of this, and really exposing everyone to it initially, just saying, hey, here's what we're looking at this year, here's what we want to do. And so if you are interested in jumping on board and being a part, we want to talk to you. And so we really went into the year looking at saying if we could get 1/3 of our staff to jump on, we would feel really good about that.
Where for kind of new adopters, what's the process look like? Where do they start?
Yep. So what I tell our teachers is when it comes to you using AI to help yourself do your job better, as long as you're using it safely or being aware of, data privacy concerns, the sky's the limit on whatever you want to use. So whether that's ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini.
Okay, Claude and Gemini. I know ChatGPT.
Sure. So Gemini would be Google's version of ChatGPT. Everyone's certainly out there. It's a competitive market. Everyone's kind of race to the top who can develop the best model. Claude is again a standalone, so very similar to ChatGPT, that large language learning model where you type in, you ask a question, you get a set of instructions, you get a response back, right? So our teachers will use large language models like that for helping them as simple as write an email or writing a class letter, right? When you think about how much time you might spend sending an email to a parent, maybe this parent's upset with you for whatever reason, okay? You're gonna really go over that email 5 times. Did I get every typo? Did I get this? Did I get that? Now you can really write that email out, put it into a ChatGPT, and within a matter of seconds have a pretty polished response. It's still your language, still what you said, but a very, you don't have to worry about it as much. So you just cut your time down in half. That's time you can spend somewhere else. Building out presentations, building out lesson plans, right? These are all that, what I say, like that low-hanging fruit. Now you start getting into, let's say, image generation. So video generation, wow, right? I want to explain to my students what it was like to see Abraham Lincoln give the Gettysburg Address. I could go on, Sora or one of these other video generators, generate that video, put some language to it, and give them an experience they would have never seen before.
And kudos to Louisa and Albemarle for their work that came out of the training. Thank you, Amy, for your leadership with VAS and the training that we were able to do across the state. And as Calypso said, capturing additional school divisions and continuing this work with AI. So with our last 5 minutes, with AI being integrated into the schools, let's talk about the impact of AI as we talk about online courses, in-service training. What can we do to expand this with digital instruction? So with AI in place, how can we enhance the learning for students? And I'll combine number 2, protect the students' data and privacy. So what experiences are you having as you and your organizations and school divisions and Virtual Virginia dealing with AI? What impact has it had on student learning? How can we continue to protect students?
I'll be honest, when he said they put stuff in the chat GPT, I had a heart attack. Because the issue for us in Prince William is the trust to have in our teachers to be able to put the right things into there. And so we are very lean in implementing AI because of that fear of them putting in private information. And so things like a chat GPT, if we just open that up and let teachers put stuff in there, we'd be in the Washington Post. So I think that is a real legit concern in moving forward of protecting our students and our staff from what they don't know and don't understand.
So I think putting the cart before the horse, not just releasing AI, but maybe entrusting and giving that training that's needed so that teachers understand the value of the AI, but yet the risks and the challenges of just opening up an application.
Yeah, I mean, we struggle with teachers just using software and creating accounts for students, let alone giving them an opportunity to go to chat GPT and say, create an IEP for me.
All right.
Is there a list, there's so many educational AI platforms out there, is there a list curated of safe places that educators can use that will not share private data? Like Skillstruck is a platform that we can have the teachers create IEPs because they don't share that data out. But is there a list created for the state with those types of things on it?
No, the Virginia Department of Education does not endorse project. We're just, it's not allowable by the law that we can endorse or create. We have talked in our department about creating criteria or like a checklist, a readiness guide types of thing. We haven't been directed to do that work yet, but John's office, for sure, he works in cybersecurity, so we are talking about that. So we certainly can create criteria and checklists, but we would never be able to, unless they change the state laws, be able to create like a ramp type program. We're hoping VITA will maybe filter that in a little bit as we have hardware that has got AI in it and those kind of things. But yeah, unfortunately, we're kind of hoping school divisions can help with that. And that's also where I would say VAS and our school board association hopefully are helping fill that gap, because Virginia Department of Education is not.
I would say that's one of the things they did in this year learning is the teams develop, depending on the division, some of them develop rubrics or vendor letters and types of things, the things that they're looking for before that can be used within the division. So that's the main types of documents they designed in the year learning. So
As certainly I'd like to add, and thank you for the input and expertise for sure. You know, sitting from a perspective of the Office of Cybersecurity and Risk Management, you know, I do hear the concern about data privacy and PII and the proper use of technologies that might be so abstracted from the user that they don't realize their unintended consequences, for sure. So trying to make sure that we're careful about the choices that we make. And you know, one of the things I'm curious about lately, and maybe this is a rhetorical question for the moment, but I'm interested in hearing more at some point as well, but just more about the software adoption process that occurs within the procurement process with that the division level. So as Calypso is saying, you know, at the VDOE, we're not permitted to promote particular products. So we can't necessarily just publish a list because of that, not wanting to promote particular products or not being able to, but certainly being helping to help with the leadership about being more mindful and thoughtful about the procurement of products as they, and also where do they get rolled out to? So maybe what would be on the operations side wouldn't necessarily be something that should be available on the instructional side.
Yes.
I think one thing from the conversation is really thinking about where technology is today. We've leaned so much on our tech department and school divisions because at one point in time, everything was installed by them. But now teachers have so much access to other platforms and tools that we really need to provide the training for teachers to understand the fundamentals behind it For another plug for DLI and CS standards, if they were to implement these standards, topics such as the acceptable use policy, PPI, data privacy, all of that is embedded in the standards, right? So we can get to a place that we're providing instruction on it. The teachers are knowledgeable about all of the concerns that the tech department is having, so that we don't jump before and just say, let's talk about use. Let's understand what it is and what are the capabilities of education. So I think it's a balance between not only how is it helpful for convenience, but understanding, again, the capabilities and the limitations of all of our technological choices.
And I think that you all said it best, to help our students. I think that you're putting components in place that help our students be prepared. We want them to be knowledgeable. We want them to be skilled when they go out into the workplace and various industries. We also want parents to understand, because we've talked a lot about today how to reach out to parents and how to best navigate information that can educate them as well. I did ask Calypso to speak about the website, because I think we kind of, we went across that, but there is a website from these 75 schools who participate.
Yeah, the VAS and the Advanced Learning Partnership pages both have all of the resources that the school divisions developed. So if you're looking for a vendor letter example, if you're looking for procurement processes and those type of things, Hampton was a part of VAS, so I'm sure you guys have your things on there, but yeah, that's always a problem. So we'll continue to depend on VAS to be able to help school divisions support that by sharing the information that they created during that. And we want to continue and deepen that conversation so that there could be a list, but the list scares us at the Virginia.
The list, I
Department
think,
of
would
Education.
change. I mean, things are
Yeah,
coming out
will
so
change,
fast.
and
It
that's what-
changes so fast.
Can I say one thing though? I think it's cross alignment across your curriculum areas, because how often do we put out, well, you should use Zern, you should use Lexia, or Virginia High School League, let's use Discord to chat in esports. Well, you should not be using Discord with students in esports. So as we get communication sometimes from VDOE, from the curriculum areas, it goes against our security guidelines and privacy and technology. So that's very difficult to manage that when we have these coming across from the curriculum areas. And so I think it's a cross collaboration that sometimes there's a disconnect.
Excellent discussion.
Yeah, and I'll say that I think opportunities like Zern Ignite and Lexia were one-time opportunities. You're not going to see that kind of push always. It's the first time I'd ever seen it from DOE, and been doing this for a long time. What we do have are our textbook and high-quality instructional materials that are curriculum materials that can be adopted. They do have virtual components to them. A lot of them have online components to them. So that might be an area where AI specifically might be thought of. HQIM is already exploring at the national level some of the HQIM tools that could be, or AI that could be used with HQIM to help teachers better implement those HQIM, but those would be adopted by the localities, right? The curriculum HQIM materials would be adopted by the localities. And so then, the AI options then would also be selected by the localities. But I think your point is valid.
Yeah, I think that's just, it's just my opinion. This is editorial opinion. I feel like if VDOE is putting out resources they want us to use, and there's some not great security put in place for AI from one of these, if your textbook adoption includes a company that has not great protection of PII, then we should not be recommending them. But that's my editorial opinion, not Prince William County. Thank you.
Thank you. What powerful and engaging conversation today. You can see that these topics are very important, and we want to extend a great deal the discussion with this. We'll continue this through email, continue to collect information on remote learning as it relates to virtual, continue to talk about AI implementation. We will certainly publish this presentation on the VLAC website. These resources and internet links will be there for your convenience. And we will have Thank you. That's my cue to be on the last slide. So
Here comes the cane.
The additional topics will be discussed. We will bring these back. They're worthy of bringing back in the fall. And look at the week of October 27th through 31st on your calendars. If there are major conflicts or events that occur during that week, let us know right away before we put this on the calendar to plan. We appreciate, again, your input today. We thank you for your participation. Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Thank you, Calypso. Thank you, our department members who participated with us today. And we certainly wish you safe travels as you go back to your destinations. All right. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, our conference is that week.